The Antarctic wind howled across the endless white expanse, carrying with it the sharp scent of ice and the unshakable sense that something was watching, as if the frozen continent itself were alive and waiting for intruders. And in the heart of this frozen desolation, a multinational research team operated their drilling platform, massive metal legs sinking into the glacier, instruments humming and sonar scanning endlessly for anomalies. When the first strange signal appeared, a faint, rhythmic pulse buried beneath 3 kilometers of ice, so precise and repetitive that every scientist present immediately understood it could not be natural. A signal that twisted the air around them, a vibration that made bones ache and minds itch with unexplainable anticipation. Yet no one could locate its source. No depth charts or seismic readings corresponded to the echo, and the anomaly itself seemed to respond to their attempts at measurement, shifting its rhythm whenever probes were deployed, almost as though aware, almost as though it was alive, waiting for them to notice. And when the first drilling probe pierced the ice and entered the void below, the pulse intensified, a low hum that resonated in metal, water, and even the very blood of the scientists, making some clutch their heads in discomfort, whispering warnings, while others leaned forward, curiosity burning brighter than caution. And over the following hours, as the ice cracked and ground shifted under the weight of the massive platform, the signals began to form patterns. Simple at first, 3 rapid pulses, then 4, then a pause, but with a regularity that suggested intention, a communication attempt spanning millennia. And when the expedition deployed their first unmanned submersible, the vehicle's sonar returned shapes that defied logic. Enormous, angular structures beneath the ice, carved with impossible precision, corridors and spires that suggested design, not geology. And the faint glimmer of reflective surfaces hinted at something crystalline, as though an entire city had been encased in ice and forgotten, yet alive in its own way. And then the first shadows appeared, colossal shapes drifting along the sonar scans, moving too fluidly to be mere rock or ice, their contours suggesting something both organic and artificial, serpentine and yet armored, eyes, or what passed for eyes, glowing faintly as if watching. And for the first time, the humans felt the weight of being truly observed, the uncanny realization that they were intruders in a domain older than history, where the rules of survival had been written by beings more ancient and intelligent than any species known. And as the expedition descended into the icy abyss, the temperature sensors fluctuated wildly, the water becoming colder than physics predicted possible, and the vehicle's instruments began displaying contradictory data, depths that shifted in impossible ways, sonar returning echoes that suggested both vast distance and immediate proximity. And the team in the control room watched in disbelief as readings alternated between certainty and impossibility. And then, suddenly, the signal changed. No longer a steady rhythm, but a series of pulses that seemed almost conversational, varying in speed, intensity, and frequency. And the lead scientist realized with a shock that the pattern resembled language, not just a code, an attempt at communication stretching across eons. And as she leaned closer, analyzing, the room lights flickered, electronics stuttered, and the submersible's cameras picked up a shadow passing before the lens, a creature neither fish nor mammal, impossibly long, gliding effortlessly through the icy water, its body crystalline, refracting light in ways that made it look like it was made of ice and living flesh simultaneously, moving with purpose, but without aggression, as though it was guiding or perhaps warning. And then the unexpected happened. The ice above the submersible fractured suddenly, massive fissures spreading outward, as though the glacier itself had shifted in response to something below. The sub's thrusters struggling against invisible currents, a force that pushed and pulled unpredictably, while the shadows of the guardians multiplied, weaving through the water with synchronized elegance. And every time the humans tried to move forward, the city beneath seemed to reconfigure itself, corridors twisting, spires tilting, structures appearing where sonar had previously shown voids, a fluid architecture that suggested sentience and awareness. And the AI aboard the submersible began issuing warnings of systems failure, not because the machines were breaking, but because the laws of physics it relied upon were being manipulated in ways beyond its calculations, as if the city itself could warp reality locally, altering pressure, density, and electromagnetic fields at will. And when the humans tried to send signals back to the surface, communications faltered, bursts of static interrupting messages, almost as though the ice and water were intercepting thought and intent, filtering what could leave and what must remain hidden. And then, a twist more terrifying than anything they had imagined. A smaller creature, translucent, shimmering with an internal light, approached the submersible, brushing against its hull in a gesture that was neither hostile nor harmless, but intentional, probing, testing, almost sentient. And the AI detected neural feedback within the crew, faint but measurable, as if the creature's energy interacted with human thought directly. And a debate erupted within the team. Was this a warning, an invitation, or a trap? And as arguments raged, the submersible's lights caught the edge of a massive, frozen spire, taller than any building, partially encased in ice. And upon closer inspection, the walls were etched with bas-reliefs depicting creatures that looked both humans and monstrous hybrids, scenes of hunting, building, even ritual, all perfectly preserved, suggesting that the city had observed life on the surface long before humans themselves evolved, recording, remembering, perhaps judging. And then the submersible's instruments registered a sudden spike in energy, a pulse so strong it nearly disabled the AI. And through the camera lens, the crew glimpsed what could only be described as an enormous gateway, walls of crystalline ice that shimmered and rotated slowly, fracturing space subtly, revealing an interior that seemed impossibly deep, stretching far beyond the limits of sonar detection. And as the team prepared to descend further, the shadows of the Guardians aligned in formation, almost ceremonial, forming a pattern around the gateway, as though acknowledging the humans' presence, their path forward both permitted and watched. And just as hope and terror collided, a massive underwater current surged through the city, violently pushing the submersible backward, knocking instruments offline, twisting the vessel as if the ocean itself were rejecting them. And in the control room above, silence fell, broken only by the faint, eerie hum of the signal, now resonating through the ice like a heartbeat, a sound that seemed to vibrate in their chests, syncing unnervingly with their own pulses. And in that moment, the lead scientist understood the first unspoken truth. This city, frozen for millennia, was alive, aware, and capable of interacting with their minds, shaping their choices, their perceptions, and perhaps even their survival. And the ultimate chilling twist revealed itself seconds later when the signal shifted again, no longer acknowledging the humans as mere explorers, but sending a pattern of pulses that perfectly matched their neural activity, their thought rhythms, as if the city had already learned them. And the shadows of the Guardians converged towards the gateway, creating a corridor of ice and light that seemed both invitation and test. And as the team realized that they were no longer merely observing, but had become part of something ancient and incomprehensible, the first guardian turned sharply, as though to signal a choice, and the ice above quivered as if anticipating a decision that would determine whether humanity would survive, be judged, or be erased. And the screen in the control room flickered once more, showing the submersible descending towards the crystalline gateway, lights cutting into the darkness, shadows weaving around it like living architecture. And as they passed through, the humans could no longer distinguish between solid ice, water, and energy, nor could they tell whether the city itself was a prison, a library, or a test chamber. And in that suspended moment of terror, curiosity, and awe, one truth crystallized in their minds. The Antarctic Ocean was hiding a civilization older than time, and it had just noticed humanity. As the submersible slipped through the crystalline gateway, the water itself seemed to thicken, a subtle viscous pull that made movement deliberate, as though the city were testing their coordination. And immediately, the walls of the chamber unfolded like enormous petals, revealing corridors that twisted in geometry no human mind could initially comprehend, streets lined with frozen conduits, and structures that refracted light into impossible colors, reflecting off surfaces that appeared solid but shimmered as if they were part liquid, part crystal. And at every turn, the guardians, massive serpentine creatures of ice and organic matter, moved with deliberate purpose, never attacking, but positioning themselves in ways that guided the humans toward chambers, testing reactions, forcing adaptation, and creating a palpable tension in the submersible that set nerves on edge. The first chamber they entered was vast beyond comprehension, a cathedral of frozen architecture, its ceiling lost in darkness and its floors stretching into corridors that disappeared into impossible vanishing points. And here the crew saw for the first time that the city was not inert, but alive in the most literal sense, for entire streets shifted as if breathing, towers twisting slowly, walls adjusting their angles in response to sonar scans and the sub's movements. And the AI began reporting anomalies beyond its programming, energy readings that contradicted known physics, water densities fluctuating independently of pressure, temperatures dropping to levels theoretically impossible, and currents that moved against gravity itself, all orchestrated subtly to challenge the humans' understanding and their capacity to improvise, forcing them to think, react, and adapt on scales that few could manage. Then, the twist that none had anticipated occurred. A smaller guardian, translucent and luminescent, approached the submersible directly, its body pulsating in time with the human's neural activity, as if it could sense thought, intent, and even fear, brushing against the hull in what could only be interpreted as a gesture of assessment. And the crew realized with dawning horror and fascination that the city was not merely testing their survival skills, but evaluating their cognitive and emotional responses, measuring ingenuity, decision-making, and courage under pressure. And when they followed the creature through a twisting corridor, the city's internal architecture rearranged itself entirely, opening a central chamber that seemed to defy all logic. Walls etched with bas-reliefs depicting interactions between human-like figures and monstrous hybrids, hunting scenes, rituals, constructions, battles, and inventions, some eerily familiar, some completely alien, suggesting that the city had observed life on the surface for far longer than humanity had existed, recording, cataloging, and perhaps judging. And as the submersible glided deeper, a sudden surge of water pushed it against a crystalline wall, and the crew realized that the currents themselves were controlled, manipulated by the city to test balance, coordination, and instinctual reactions. And while the vehicle struggled, the Guardians formed a synchronized pattern around the chamber, creating an unspoken path forward, neither permitting nor forbidding, a corridor of both opportunity and warning. And then the city reacted in a way that no human could have predicted. Entire floors rotated slowly, exposing hidden mechanisms that seemed designed to interface with human technology. Conduits that pulsed with energy when touched, and devices that responded to their instruments, adjusting their orientation to accommodate human attempts at manipulation. As if teaching without words, presenting challenges that could be overcome only through ingenuity, observation, and adaptive reasoning. And when the first scientist reached out to interact with the crystalline control panel, the energy flowing through the city reacted violently, currents swirling in impossible directions, pressure spikes threatening to disable instruments. Yet no harm was permanent, the city enforcing lessons rather than punishment, forcing the crew to understand that their survival depended not on brute force, but intelligence, adaptability, and trust in each other. And as the hours passed, the Guardians' patterns became increasingly complex, guiding the humans through sections that twisted perception of space, depth, and distance, creating illusions that were tested against reality by their instruments and their intuition. And then the city introduced the ultimate challenge, a chamber that seemed to fold in on itself, walls stretching to infinity, the Guardians circling like living geometry, energy fields forming barriers that could only be overcome through precise manipulation of the crystalline nodes. And as the humans worked together, improvising solutions using partial understanding of alien principles, the city responded dynamically, altering environmental conditions, testing their resilience and creative problem-solving. And in the midst of this, a subtle but chilling twist emerged. The city projected visions into their minds, showing catastrophic failure scenarios, frozen guardians turning hostile, ice collapsing, submersible destroyed, entire mission lost, all synchronized to their thoughts, an immersive warning designed to provoke fear, stress, and instinctive reaction. Yet the humans persisted, improvising solutions beyond conventional reasoning, demonstrating adaptability and courage under pressure. And when the final node was manipulated correctly, the chamber stabilized, currents and pressure normalized, guardians paused in their circling, and the city acknowledged the human success not with words, but through a profound environmental shift, corridors and spires aligning harmoniously, and the AI detected a stable neural feedback loop, no longer threatening, but cooperative, a tangible sign that humanity had passed a preliminary test of ingenuity and adaptability. And as the crew looked through the submersible's viewport, they saw the city shimmer in patterns that almost resembled applause, light cascading through corridors, spires twisting elegantly. And in that awe-inspiring moment, the team understood the fundamental truth. This civilization, frozen yet alive beneath the Antarctic ice, was both a test and a repository, capable of teaching, judging, and perhaps even empowering those it deemed worthy. And the twist that left their hearts pounding was subtle but undeniable. This city, this sentient frozen world, had not only noticed humanity, it had begun to interact with them, probe them, and adapt to their choices, setting the stage for challenges that would not merely test survival, but the very qualities that defined humanity: courage, intelligence, adaptability, and the willingness to confront the impossible. As the submersible glided deeper into the heart of the city, the environment itself seemed to shift in ways that defied logic, corridors stretching and contracting, angles twisting subtly with every movement, as though the city were breathing around them. And the Guardians, massive serpentine constructs of crystalline ice and organic tissue, circulated in synchronized formations that projected not aggression, but expectation, forming invisible grids of pressure, energy and space that forced the humans to anticipate motion and react before they even realized they were being tested. And almost immediately, subtle currents began tugging at the submersible in conflicting directions, temperatures fluctuating rapidly from near freezing to slightly warmer, creating layers of turbulence that tested not only the vessel's engineering limits, but the human's capacity for rapid adaptation. And as they advanced, the AI detected energy fields that pulsed in response to their cognitive patterns, synchronizing with their brainwaves in ways that made their perceptions unreliable. And yet the humans persevered, carefully tracking Guardian movement, interpreting the city's subtle cues, and improvising techniques that combined sonar modulation, mechanical manipulation of the submersible, and timing their actions to coincide with the Guardian's movements, all while navigating the labyrinthian streets of ice and crystal that constantly shifted, presenting obstacles that were simultaneously real and illusory. And then the city revealed the next layer of its test. Rooms that folded in on themselves, space compressing and stretching unpredictably, requiring the crew to calculate trajectories and adjust thrusters in real time, improvising solutions that would have been impossible in conventional physics. And as they approached the central chamber, the submersible's sensors detected anomalous readings, unlike anything encountered before. Energy flows that resembled neural patterns, interacting dynamically with the human mind. And then the unexpected twist struck. A small guardian approached the hull, transparent and luminescent, brushing lightly against the vessel, and the AI detected a resonance in the neural feedback that suggested the city was probing the humans' ethical and strategic decision-making, subtly forcing them to choose between risk and reward, cooperation and isolation, ingenuity and caution. And when one scientist attempted a shortcut by bypassing part of a puzzle, a sudden surge of energy rippled through the chamber, currents reversed violently, the submersible pitched dangerously, and holographic projections of potential catastrophic failures filled the viewport, showing guardians collapsing structures, the ice fracturing catastrophically, and the city itself seeming to quiver with anticipation. Yet, the humans adapted, analyzing the projections, predicting the city's responses, and improvising a solution that balanced risk with careful observation, demonstrating a level of creative problem-solving that no automated system could have achieved. And the city responded, corridors shifting smoothly, energy pulses harmonizing with the submersible's instruments, guardians halting their erratic motion to acknowledge success, and the humans realized that the city was not merely a structure, but a sentient evaluator, capable of judging the moral, strategic, and cognitive abilities of any species that entered. And then another twist struck. The central hall opened to reveal a chamber suspended in ice, where floating crystalline platforms displayed simulations of human history, inventions, conflicts, and achievements. And the city projected scenarios of potential futures, both prosperous and catastrophic. And through neural resonance, the humans were forced to make choices, strategic simulations that required cooperation, moral reasoning, and creativity under pressure, decisions that could determine the city's willingness to share knowledge or punish perceived recklessness. And as the Guardians formed complex geometric formations, the humans navigated these simulations, interpreting visual cues, timing movements, and improvising novel solutions, their ingenuity tested in ways no academic exercise could have prepared them for. And the city responded dynamically, altering simulations to increase difficulty, subtly manipulating water density, currents, and light to introduce new variables. And as the submersible maneuvered, pressure spikes threatened instruments, energy fields pulsed unpredictably, yet every challenge overcome by human wit brought a harmonious response from the city. Corridors stabilizing, energy flows smoothing, guardians pausing in acknowledgement, and then the ultimate twist emerged. A crystalline projection extended into the submersible, tapping into neural activity, challenging the humans to solve a sequence that required not only intellect, but empathy, requiring them to anticipate the city's reactions and the Guardians' movements simultaneously, forcing the team to act as a collective intelligence rather than individuals. And when they succeeded, the projections dissolved, energy flowing calmly around the submersible, corridors aligning symmetrically, guardians forming an intricate pattern of respect rather than intimidation, and the city revealed the final test. A chamber containing a massive crystalline entity suspended in ice, shifting light and shadow like a living aurora, the central consciousness of the city itself, observing, weighing, calculating, yet without aggression. And the humans understood that the city was no longer testing physical survival, but moral judgment, innovation, and courage, forcing them to manipulate energy conduits, currents, and crystalline structures in ways that harmonized with the entity's flow, demonstrating their ability to integrate knowledge, improvisation, and ethical reasoning. And when they finally synchronized their actions successfully, the city responded with a breathtaking display. Streets and spires of crystal shifted to reveal hidden archives, knowledge stored for eons, technology millennia beyond human comprehension, and guardians aligned to form a protective perimeter rather than a test. And as the submersible floated amidst this awe-inspiring display, the humans realized the profound truth. The city had accepted them, not as conquerors, but as worthy, capable of rising to challenges that no other species could. And yet, even as relief flooded the crew, a subtle final twist lingered in their minds. The city had learned from them as much as they had learned from it, recording their decisions, their improvisation, their courage, and it remained to be seen whether the knowledge they had gained would be granted fully, partially, or withheld entirely, a reminder that even in victory, the Antarctic Ocean and its ancient sentient city demanded respect, vigilance, and continuous ingenuity. And as the submersible prepared to ascend through the twisting corridors towards the outer layers of ice, the humans felt an unshakable mix of awe, triumph, and foreboding, knowing that the Antarctic Ocean had revealed itself, had judged them, and that their encounter with the frozen city beneath its depths would not only redefine what humanity was capable of, but forever alter the way they understood life, intelligence, and survival in a universe that could hide gods beneath sheets of ice, waiting for the right species to arise and prove themselves worthy. The city, now fully awake and responsive, pulsed around the submersible like a living organism, corridors expanding and contracting, crystalline spires rotating elegantly, and currents flowing with deliberate intent, as if the Antarctic Ocean itself had become a sentient network, observing, judging, and interacting simultaneously. And the humans realized that the final phase of the city's test was not about survival, nor even ingenuity alone, but about synchronizing their will, intelligence, and moral reasoning with a consciousness older than the planet itself, a challenge that demanded every ounce of courage, trust, and improvisational skill they possessed. The submersible glided into the central chamber, where the city's core, an immense crystalline entity of shifting light, shadow, and refracted energy, hovered suspended in ice, seemingly infinite in scale, and the guardians moved in formation around it, no longer testing, but creating a structured environment in which human decisions would ripple outward, influencing currents, light, and the very architecture of the frozen metropolis. And immediately, the crew encountered the first of the final trials, an enormous lattice of crystalline nodes, each emitting pulses that interacted with their neural activity, requiring them to coordinate thought, action, and emotion in perfect harmony to stabilize the network. And any hesitation triggered sudden, unpredictable shifts in water density, spikes in pressure, and fluctuations in energy that threatened to overload both instruments and minds, forcing the humans to improvise, relying on intuition and collective problem solving rather than pre-programmed knowledge. And as they manipulated the nodes, the city responded dynamically. Corridors folding, spires rotating, and guardians moving in synchronized, elegant patterns that projected energy flows, currents, and light cues, subtly guiding them toward solutions while simultaneously testing creativity, ethical judgment, and the ability to anticipate consequences beyond immediate perception. And then, just as the humans began to establish a rhythm with the city, the ultimate twist struck. The core entity projected a vision directly into their minds, showing a catastrophic scenario in which failure to harmonize would result in the city collapsing, guardians turning hostile, ice fracturing, currents overwhelming the submersible, and humanity being expelled from the Antarctic abyss. And the vision was so vivid, so immersive, that every member of the crew felt the surge of fear, pressure, and responsibility as though it were happening in real time. Yet in that moment, their collective ingenuity and adaptability emerged. The team divided, some analyzing node energy patterns, others observing guardian behavior, and a third group improvising ways to synchronize the submersible systems with the city's energy flows, merging human technology with alien intelligence in ways no one could have predicted, creating a harmonic resonance that stabilized the chamber, counteracting the simulated catastrophe, and proving that humans were capable not just of survival, but of mastery under conditions that defied every known law of physics and biology. And as they succeeded, the city responded with a breathtaking display. Corridors shifting seamlessly, towers rotating in perfect symmetry, and the guardians assumed positions of acknowledgement rather than challenge, flowing around the humans like a living aurora, guiding them toward the central archives. And when the submersible reached the heart of the chamber, the humans beheld the full scope of the city's knowledge. Crystalline arrays storing data on oceanic ecosystems, alien technologies, energy manipulation, and methods of sustaining life in extreme environments, all encoded in materials that defied conventional analysis. And yet, the city was not simply a library, it was a sentient evaluator, continuously assessing their ability to comprehend, adapt, and innovate, presenting new challenges even as they explored its depths. And in a twist that combined awe and fear, the city introduced the final challenge, a massive guardian of unprecedented size, its body a fusion of ice, crystal, and energy, advanced beyond recognition, coiled and poised to test the humans' ability to orchestrate their actions collectively. And the energy field it radiated created environmental distortions so extreme that conventional instruments failed. Currents swirling in opposition to one another, pressure spikes threatening hull integrity, and visual distortions making spatial orientation nearly impossible. Yet through intuition, observation, and improvisation, the humans coordinated their movements, aligning the submersible's thrusters, manipulating crystalline nodes, and timing interventions to harmonize with the Guardian's patterns. And slowly, painfully, they achieved resonance, a perfect synchronization of human ingenuity with ancient sentient logic, the currents calming, the energy flows stabilizing, and the Guardian shifting its massive form in acknowledgement, not attack, a literal symbol that humanity had passed the final test of courage, intelligence, and adaptability. And then, in a display that left them speechless, the city's architecture unfolded around them, revealing a vast inner sanctum, corridors expanding, crystalline spires forming patterns of light that mimicked constellations, energy pulses creating harmonic melodies that resonated with human perception. And for the first time, the humans realized the magnitude of what they had accomplished. They had engaged with a sentient civilization that had survived millennia beneath the Antarctic ice, judged it, adapted to it, and emerged worthy of its knowledge and acknowledgement. Yet the twists were not over. The city, learning from their decisions, began to offer them adaptive knowledge, showing not just static archives, but solutions to problems humanity had yet not imagined, blueprints for technologies that could stabilize the climate, manipulate energy safely, and explore the most extreme frontiers of the oceans. And in that moment, the humans understood that the Antarctic abyss was no longer just a frozen, empty expanse, but a living repository of intelligence, waiting for a species capable of ingenuity, cooperation, and courage. And as they prepared to ascend toward the surface, the guardians aligning around them to form a protective channel, currents guiding them upward, the city pulsing with recognition and approval, they realized that survival alone had never been enough. What had been demanded of them was proof that humans could rise to challenges that defied understanding, master forces that had existed before history, and earn the respect of a civilization older than humanity itself. And as the submersible pierced the upper layers of ice, sunlight returning as a pale shimmer through the frozen surface, the team felt awe, triumph, and an unshakable awareness that the Antarctic Ocean had revealed its deepest secret, that humanity had faced the impossible, adapted, and prevailed. And the final twist lingered as they broke through to open water. The city had not only acknowledged their ingenuity, but had learned from them, recording their decisions, their creativity, and their courage, a silent promise and warning that humanity had been entrusted with knowledge and responsibility far greater than they had ever imagined. And as the icy expanse receded behind them, blank and indifferent, the team understood the truth in their hearts. The Antarctic Ocean had tested humans against the very definition of intelligence, and they had risen to meet it, not through brute force, not through dominance, but through ingenuity, courage, and the unyielding will to face the unknown, proving that humanity, even in the face of incomprehensible ancient forces, could prevail, adapt, and ascend.